Hey everybody, it's Party Elite, and today we're taking a look at Desperados 3, a game that I've eagerly awaited since its first rumblings years ago. Set in the Wild West in the world of the Desperados series, this story-driven tactical stealth action game will be familiar to fans of the series from the early 2000s and fans of games like Commandos. Heads up, I was given a review key for the game by the devs, but this obviously doesn't impact my opinion, and I'm actually trying to hunt the collector's edition down to buy it right now, which might give you a hint as to how I feel about the game. As often is the case, if you're interested in picking the game up after you watch this review, I have a link in the description and under the eye at the top right corner of this screen where you can pick the game up and support charity as well as the channel at the same time. Now, let's not waste any more time. This is the most excited I've been to talk about a game in a very long while, so let's dive right on in. After 13 years away, Desperados has made a return in style, with Mimimi Games at the helm, following up their Shadow Tactics Blades of the Shogun game from 2016. As a prequel, Desperados 3 introduces us to the backstory of series protagonist John Cooper, even showing us his days as a child with his dad, and it shows us how the gang comes together. Returning characters Kate O'Hara and Doc McCoy, alongside new characters Hector Mendoza and Isabelle Moreau, round out the total of 5 characters you'll be able to take control of, oftentimes all at once, sometimes in groups of 2 or 3, or sometimes solo. Each of these characters, as can be expected, specialize in different ways, and I'll touch more on that in a moment. Through a few in-engine and pre-rendered cutscenes, alongside some flashback gameplay sequences as a young John, with overall great writing and mostly good voice acting, backed by excellent music, we are told a classic Wild West revenge story in style.
Get in, find Frank, do what I came for.
I'm going to try and avoid spoilers as much as possible, both in terms of story and gameplay options, though a couple of examples must be given. I'll keep it to early game stuff so I'm not ruining all of the plethora of surprises that Desperados 3 has to offer. Now we're introduced to the characters piecemeal, which is a great way to tutorialize the complex opportunities each one brings to the tables. It spreads the learning process across several missions, so it doesn't feel front-loaded and it doesn't bog you down, but instead keep things feeling fresh. John Cooper has 2 guns, a coin he can toss to draw attention elsewhere, and a knife he can use to stab in close range, though he can also throw it to kill from range, quietly. Doc McCoy is a sniper, though he can also use a syringe he has to kill enemies up close, and he has a bag he can toss, attracting low-tier enemy troops to it, and stunning them for a few seconds. He has a vial he can throw to stun enemies within its radius, and finally, bandages for healing purposes, living up to his Doc name after all. Hector Mendoza is the heavy, carrying a bear trap that isn't visible to low-tier enemies that he can lure enemies to using his whistle. He also has an axe for close-range work and a shotgun for good old-fashioned area clearance, and a flask to keep himself healed as well. Kate O'Hara is able to pick pockets and knock people out at close range, gun them down from far, blind them with tossed vials of perfume, flirt with men to keep them focused on her, or even convince them to follow her for a short duration. Those last couple aren't possible unless she's stolen a disguise from the level and put it on. And finally, Isabelle Moreau is able to melee enemies to death in close range, use her pet cat to distract enemies, and more interestingly, use her supernatural abilities to mind control enemies or to link 2 enemies together so they're both impacted by the same effects. She's also able to heal herself, which is necessary since the mind control costs her a hit point to use. These abilities, though, are just scratching the surface on how these characters are different. For when bodies pile up and you need to hide them, Hector can carry 2 bodies at a time, but he has to stand, meaning he's more easily spotted, but he can also toss bodies and run while carrying them. John can only carry 1. He's also stuck standing, but he can't toss bodies and he can't sprint when he's carrying them. McCoy and O'Hara are only able to drag bodies, so they're much, much slower, but they stay low to the ground. Isabelle stands and isn't able to toss or run while carrying either. But wait, there's more. Isabelle can swim. John can climb. I could go on describing these characters forever, but let's leave some stuff up for discovery. I just think it's very important that we set the groundwork here as to what the tools are at your disposal, because now take these characters and put them into massive, handcrafted levels that are often split into safe zones where you can travel and plan freely, and danger zones where the very sight of you will trigger an alarm. Mix in different tiers of enemies who are all immune to different things in different ways and have different kinds of behaviors, and sprinkle in the sometimes, well actually, often complex, synchronized clockwork of patrols that these guards take with their viewing angles and differing immunities. Now, you're able to see what the enemies are looking at any given time, and you can plan your movements and actions around them. So guards will be walking around, they'll get into conversations that'll narrow their cones of vision, or you'll throw something to distract a guard and they'll, pinpoint laser sharp focus on that and ignore everything going around them. So using those viewing cones and figuring out these paths and patterns is so important to helping you plan your approach. And while the game's marketing simplifies your options as stealthy or guns blazing, that description is doing the game such a great disservice, and this is where things get really fantastic. I mean, just listen, multiple paths are one thing, but each engagement and each segment of each level becomes a mini sandbox for you to play in, especially as more characters become available to you. And sometimes, even when you're going solo, there are different ways to just approach a situation. Now, on top of that, each level has badges you can earn by doing unique things that may actually be counterintuitive at times, and sometimes the game tries to fake you out into thinking there are badges available for the taking. They're not revealed to you until after completing a mission the first time, so sometimes, in your first playthrough, you'll go out of your way to earn a badge that didn't exist in the first place. I loved it because I'm a bit of a completionist. I want to try and get those badges on the first go around. I want to try and guess what they are. So the first time I thought I caught on to something and there was no badge related to it at all, I was furious in the best way. I was like, oh, come on, you got me. Well done, game. You got me. I went out of my way to do this thing that was completely unnecessary. And it was completely unnecessary. I loved it. Now, there are honestly countless examples I could give you about the varied gameplay options. Do you coin toss to distract guards, or do you flirt to pull their attention elsewhere with a bit more permanence? Do you draw their attention by leaving tracks in the mud with your footprints leading them into a trap? Do you use supernatural magic to link two enemies, mind control a third, and have him shoot one of the first two, resulting in both of the linked enemies' deaths? Do you use the showdown mode that allows you to synchronize actions between multiple characters at the click of a button, allowing you to pull off complicated takedowns of large groups that would otherwise raise the alarm? Honestly, one of the coolest feelings in the game is successfully pulling one of these off. Or do you go extra stealthy and find a way to get the environment to help make things look like an accident? It really helps because guards don't care for the dead bodies they find resulting from an accident, and sometimes the game very clearly sets them up. Oh look, this rock can fall upon enemies, or oh look, this horse will kick somebody in the face if you bother it. But sometimes you can bait an enemy into the path of a trap in ways that I don't know if the game even intended, but it works.
Show yourself. What the?
It works so well. And even when you start popping shots off, the alert only lasts a little while, so you can resume the rest of the mission in stealth mode, and that's always an option. But I think, honestly, the best example I can give that really highlights how varied your approaches can be is this. There's a level very early in the game. I don't want to spoil, much later on, but very early in the game, there's this level where a mid-level cutscene suggests you sneak into a certain portion of the map to pick up a disguise, making the rest of the level much easier to play.
Use them to blend in.
Sure. Though I don't see a gal like you blending in anyway.
And that's what I did my first playthrough. But then I noticed there was a badge available for doing the level without a disguise, and I decided to open my mind and I noticed the carefully crafted alternative path I could take to finish the level in a fraction of the time, though requiring more intricate use of the tools at my disposal. An entire section of the map was completely unexplored, and entirely different solutions were necessary between the two successful playthroughs of the level. Another great example is another early level where you find yourself separated from the pack as Hector, and you can either start by very easily joining forces with Kate and John, making the search for McCoy easier, or you can go solo to earn a badge, getting McCoy first. Much more challenging, requiring a completely different approach, and totally worth playing the level a second time through, if not more. And after it's all done, it's really cool to see your playthrough displayed as a replay as shown here. Visually, very compelling. It helps you live through the good times and the bad, seeing exactly where you did what, how many times you saved or loaded a save. And on the topic of replay, in full transparency, folks, I haven't finished the game yet. Haven't played through the full story. As compelling as the story is, I just haven't. Now you might be wondering why, and how can I review a game without having finished it? Folks, very simply, I've kept on going back and playing the same levels over and over and over again, just trying to best myself, trying to hit a better time or accomplish different badges. The replayability is insane. I instantly set the difficulty to the highest possible option and threw myself into the fire, and it's been an absolute blast. I haven't been able to pull myself away from the game since I started playing it, and even as I write this review, I'm thinking of alternate approaches to some of the levels I'd already finished. The devs suggested that the game is about 35 to 40 hours of playtime through and through. I've already spent that much time by the time I finished the first chapter. Again, just playing the same levels over and over again. Honestly, in my humble opinion, if a game can do that to you, it is worth getting. It is worth praising. I can't remember the last time I felt this way about a game. This is an early contender for Game of the Year in my books, especially when it comes to strategy games and tactics games. Honestly, I love it. Now, okay, that's not to say the game is perfect. There are some issues. Now, like I said previously, the voice acting is mostly okay. There are some bits like accents that could use some work.
Good morning, Hector.
Good morning, miss.
The visuals, while pretty, also feel a little dated at times. Stretched textures during cutscenes, sometimes middling visual effects, and other minor issues in an otherwise vibrant and pretty game. I also wish the game early on made it clear just how different its different approaches can be. I think the lesson of how varied the game can be should have been made clearer sooner, as it made the gameplay experience infinitely better once I realized it. I also wish there was a bit more visual variety in enemies. I understand the need to keep the archetypes to a few different varieties, and I also understand the need to make them easily recognizable so you can plan your strategies around them, but it's definitely strange seeing the bandits and the sheriff's boys all dressed the same and talking the same. I feel like it could bring an extra layer of visual interest to certain levels. Now, another major factor, which some would consider a flaw, is the level of patience the game requires. You will make mistakes. You will get caught. You will get shot. You will fail over and over and over and over again. You'll think you've checked everything, but nope, things are different now. You'll think you found a pattern, but nope, there's a new piece to it. You'll think the enemies will react the same way to the same stimulus, but nope, the path they took was slightly different this time and you got caught. The game is really about adapting to evolving situations, and the evolving situations are all throwing darts at you while you're cartwheeling across a burning bridge. This is not for the faint of heart, especially on higher difficulties. I, personally, absolutely love this. This is my jam. This kind of stress and pressure is what I love in a game like this. So it's very easy for me to consider this a highlight, but I realize some people might be concerned by it. Some people might not enjoy it. The easier difficulties are certainly more forgiving, allowing you more affordance with enemy reaction times and how easily they spot you if you walk into their cone of vision, things like that. But this can be a punishing game, be warned. I do wish the game had a bit of a community aspect to it as well. I wish there were leaderboards, or some other form of competitive system built into the levels. I feel like that would pump even more life into things, as I'd be able to compete with my friends and the world as a whole rather than just myself. I'm also not a fan of badges that contradict each other. This is obviously a design decision that was consciously made for a reason. It's so that you go back to the same level multiple times, trying to accomplish a different badge each time, because for your game, they are collected sort of as a summation of all the badges you got, not just through one playthrough. But I like the challenge of being able to achieve all the badges at once, rather than having to pick them piecemeal. Now, none of these are deal breakers or game breakers, though. Honestly, I just want to keep talking about this game. I could ramble about Desperados 3 for hours on end, and picking what to include and what to exclude in this review has been a ridiculous challenge. Coming to creative solutions to the complex puzzles that the developers have set up, and constantly competing with myself, was just endless fun. Experimenting with potential options and new ways to use the tools available made failure actually enjoyable. I enjoyed losing because I tried something different, I tried something new, and I feel like folks who have that mindset and that approach to games will especially enjoy this kind of very punishing situation you'll find yourself in often with this game. Honestly, trying to trick the game, pushing its mechanics to its limits, finding new solutions, optimal or not, and just having those, oh, I can't believe that worked, kind of moments of elation, a real sense of pride and accomplishment, if you will. Man, honestly, I'm done writing this review. The game's amazing, highly recommended. I wish I had more bad things to say to balance this review out, but goddamn, the developers hit it out of the park. I'm going back to playing. I hope this review helped you make a decision about Desperados 3. If you'd like to pick it up, again, check out the link under the eye at the top right corner of the screen or in the description down below. Again, it helps charity as well as the channel. If you have any questions or concerns or thoughts you'd like to share, drop them in the comments below and I'll answer what I can as soon as possible. Honestly, I'm just so excited to see people share their solutions to various parts of the game. God damn, this game is just so much fun. Cannot recommend it more. Absolutely loved it. As always, a massive thanks goes out to all of my channel members and patrons for supporting the channel on a monthly basis, and a big old thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.